Dr. Ishita, you can share your screen.
Good morning. Today we'll having a case discussion on a solitary thyroid nodule. It will be presented by Dr. Ishita Laha, who is a third-year junior resident at RKM Share Position, Vivekananda Institute of Medical Sciences, and Professor Utpal De will take us through the case scenario. Dr. De is Professor of Surgery at NRS Medical College and is a very ardent teacher. So, Ishita, you can share your screen and start presenting. Ishita, can you hear us? Ishita, unmute and share your screen.
Yes, sir. Can you see the screen, sir?
No, not yet.
Sir, I'm not being able to open the PowerPoint.
You open in your laptop. It's not opening up.
No, sir. With Zoom share, it's not opening up.
Can you send this to Dr. Milind mail?
Yes, sir.
You send it, we'll open up.
Sir, sent.
Okay. Ishita, can you see the screen?
No, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, see? Okay. You start presenting and Dr. Milind will change the slides. Okay?
Okay, sir. Sorry, sir, for the beginning.
No problem. No, this happens. Okay.
And good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone present here and my colleagues. I myself, Dr. Ishita, from third year PGT from BIMS. I present here Mrs. X, who is a 34-year-old lady, a resident of Kolkata and housewife by profession, presents with the chief complaints of swelling in front of the neck for last 3 months. The patient was apparently well 3 months back when her family members noticed a swelling in front of her neck. The swelling was insidious in onset, gradually increasing in size, initially of the size 1 into 1 centimeter, which has increased to the current size of 3 into 3 centimeter. It is not associated with any aggravating factors. There is no history of pain over the swelling, no history of fever or weight loss or any loss of appetite, no history of cough or expectoration, no history of symptoms suggestive of hyper or hypothyroidism, no history of irradiation or trauma to the neck, no history of change of voice or breathlessness or difficulty in swallowing. Relevant medical and surgical history goes as follows. No history of any surgeries in the past, no history of any tuberculosis or its exposure from nearby members, and no history of any medication intake for any chronic ailments. Personal history. She takes a mixed Indian diet, neither an alcoholic nor a smoker. Sleep, bowel, bladder, appetite are all normal. She is married with 2 children which have been delivered through normal vaginal delivery, and she has regular menstrual cycles of 28 days with average flow and 5-day duration. No similar illnesses in the family. I summarize as follows. A 34-year-old lady presents with a swelling for last 3 months in front of the neck, insidious in onset, gradually progressive from 1 into 1 centimeter to 3 into 3 centimeter presently, with no symptoms suggestive of hyper or hypothyroidism or constitutional or compressive symptoms.
Okay. Ishita, can you stop it? Can we go back to the first slide, please? Yeah. So in this slide, you have said that the patient had a swelling which was for 3 months, right? And then
Yes,
you are saying from the history of present illness that the size was 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. So
Yes.
Can anyone measure? Measurements can be done on history of present illness.
Sir, as she has described, sir, from a very T size to the present size.
So you write down that, because 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter is a measurement, isn't it? So we do not expect someone, or either you write down approximately, right? If the patient is educated, then you write down approximately. Otherwise, it is better to mention in terms of some objects. Right.
Actually, Dr. Dey, most of the examiners now prefer that don't simulate with marble or P or this. They are saying that this is assessed by gesture of the patient. Patient will show a particular thing about the size showing fingers, and then you assess, yes, this is an approximation. That has to be actually approximate. You are exactly right. You cannot give the exact dimension.
That is what I said.
As gestured by the patient, that also can be mentioned as gestured by the patient. From then, gesture you made an approximation of this idea.
Okay, sir.
Either you measure say in terms of what's said in terms of fingers, or you say in terms of, if the patient is educated, you write down approximately 1 centimeter by 1.
Okay, sir.
I think rather than measuring. Okay, go to the next slide. So you said there is no history of pain over this swelling, right?
Yes, sir.
Why did you mention this?
Sir, any pain over the swelling may indicate that it is a cystic swelling whose some nodule has been has had recent hemorrhage in it, so that can cause pain, and or any malignant transformation of the swelling can cause pain. So in order to rule out those, I have mentioned this.
Now see, I have some reservations regarding malignancy. Malignancy, suppose in that swelling, small size swelling, causing pain. Initially, it's very difficult, right? So whatever you have said regarding hemorrhage, I accept that.
Any other condition which can cause pain apart from hemorrhage?
Sir, this thyroiditis, subacute thyroiditis can cause pain.
Okay, very good. Now come to the third one. No history of cough or expectoration. Why did you take this one?
Sir, in case, sir, if there is any nerve involvement, sir, in case of malignancy, sir, there can be some cough from that.
What are the nerves that are involved in malignancy?
Sir, recurrent laryngeal nerve, sir.
So does it cause cough?
Sir,
That causes hoarseness in voice, isn't it?
yes, sir.
What other nerves can be involved?
Sir, an external laryngeal nerve, sir.
So does it cause cough?
Uh,
That causes loss of timbre of voice, right?
loss of timbre, high pitch, yes.
What other nerves can be involved?
Sir, sympathetic trunk may get compressed, sir.
Right. So that causes Horner syndrome.
Horner syndrome, yes, sir.
Right. So that also does not cause cough. Does it cause cough?
No, sir, no.
No. So why do we take a history of cough and expectoration? So what is the idea behind taking this one? It is because if the patient has got cough, they take expectorants, isn't it? So some of these expectorants might contain iodine. So that is one idea of why we take it. Apart from that, cough and expectoration does not per se have a direct relation with any thyroid swelling.
Okay, sir.
Now you said, come to the fifth one, no history of irradiation or trauma to the neck. What kind of irradiation do you expect?
Sir, in case, sir, of lymphoma, sir, of head and neck region, it gets irradiated, and sir, also in case of head neck malignancies, we kind of expose the patient to a lot of CT scan head neck, so that also contributes.
That is why I asked you. See, diagnostic irradiation does not usually lead to thyroid swelling. It's only the therapeutic irradiations that usually lead to the thyroid swelling, right? So I accept your.
Sir, then skin like.
Right. I got it.
Acne, that also gets irradiated.
So irradiation therapy, you write down therapeutic irradiation.
Okay, sir.
Because the child might be exposed to X-rays, okay, but that per se does not cause a thyroid swelling. So therapeutic irradiations usually lead to thyroid swelling. Trauma to the neck, again, okay, you might add it, but as per se for a thyroid swelling, trauma has a very little significance when we are talking about it. Okay. History of change of voice, breathlessness, and difficulty in swallowing. Okay. Go to the next slide.
So Ishita, when you talk of irradiation in the neck, what is the characteristics of that thyroid malignancy which comes up following irradiation? And what is the usual time gap between the irradiation and development of the malignancy?
Sir, usually time gap is 10 to 15 years, sir. Yes. And sir, it can be anaplastic carcinoma, sir.
Yes, more of high-grade carcinomas which happens in post-irradiated patient, and there are more of genetic changes in this patient.
I'll tell you, see, irradiation per se, it develops into anaplastic carcinoma, but as sir said, there are genetic changes, right? So initially, first when we irradiate, usually it leads to papillary thyroid carcinoma, and then it leads to anaplastic carcinoma. And another question I want to ask you, as I mentioned about iodine, what is the cancer which is most prevalent in iodine deficient areas?
Sir, follicular neoplasm, sir.
And what happens in iodine sufficient areas where we take more iodine?
Sir, I'm afraid I don't know, sir.
Papillary thyroid CA. Okay. Right. So papillary thyroid CA is usually found in iodine sufficient areas, and in iodine deficient areas we get follicular thyroid CA.
Ishita, you should have mentioned also about other metastatic symptoms. That is also part of thyroid history. You have not touched that part. Okay, this patient has got a swelling. A solitary thyroid swelling may also be malignant. So you should at least mention one line that there is no metastatic symptoms, and then the examiner ask you what are the metastatic symptoms, because I think we pass on to the past history. So there should be another line.
So since I am taking it to means it's a benign condition, so I thought.
How do you know? How do you know it is
benign? Benign from the beginning. It's a solitary thyroid nodule. It can be. In fact, I am wondering. You are saying the lump has gone from 1 to 3 centimeters in 3 months' time. That alerts me that this is not a slow-growing tumor. If anything become 3 centimeters in 3 months' time, or more than double, that I would take it as a more rapid progress than a slow growth. Okay, so you cannot take as benign. I have not given a benign thyroid condition. I have given a solitary thyroid nodule, and you go for discussion. So keep in mind that this can be malignant also. So talk of any other swelling in the neck, which will suggest a lymph node metastasis. Talk of any metastatic symptoms, which might suggest that It might be a follicular carcinoma spread into the lungs or to the brain or whatever. Okay, so don't get biased at the beginning.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay, Nick, go to the next slide. You said no history of any surgery. So what surgeries do you mean by this?
So no past surgical history, I meant.
That is what I want to know. You cannot generalize things. Means when you see thyroid is a disease which is like mathematics, right? So you have 1 + 1, 2 in thyroid, but you do not have 1 + 1, 2 in other relations. So when you talk about surgeries, there are specific surgeries which are related to thyroid. And it's very important also.
Sir, like parathyroid for any parathyroid adenoma. Sir.
Parathyroid. Before that, okay, I accept that. But before going into the micro ones, can you tell me about the other surgeries? See, I'll tell you. See, no history of any thyroid surgery means there can be two aspects to it, right? One is in thyroid, when we talk about malignancies, it's because some of these thyroid malignancies are multifocal, and then what happens is there can be a second primary. So that is one. Means the patient can have a history of a thyroid surgery prior also, right? So this is one aspect. But this comes second. The first thing is some thyroid carcinomas are associated with, like medullary thyroid carcinomas, with other tumors like pheochromocytoma.
Pheochromocytoma.
So patient can give a history of this thing, means adrenalectomy, right? So
Yes,
that is also important. Now, nowadays they say that there are certain thyroid malignancies which are related to higher amount of estrogen also. So patient can have a history of ovarian
CA or ovarian.
Yeah. So that is what I want to know. When you speak about surgeries, these are the things which should be in your mind. Patient examiner might not ask you, but then some examiners are fond of asking this sort of questions, so they might ask you. So you should keep this in mind.
Okay, sir.
Okay. No history of any medications or for any chronic ailments. Okay, go to the next slide. Now, personal history. In personal history, you said neither an alcoholic nor a smoker. Right. So how does, why did you take this thing, alcoholism and smoking?
Sir, smoking contributes to cancer, sir. So does long-term.
How does it cause, smoking and alcohol cause cancer?
Pardon, sir?
How does smoking and alcohol cause cancer?
Is it implicated directly in thyroid cancer? Do you think is directly implicated in thyroid cancer? As such, it is not a factor for developing thyroid cancer. It is important for other head neck malignancies.
But still, means nowadays they say there is some relation, and that is mainly related to TSH stimulation, right? Means not a direct impact on the. There are two ways actually. Alcohol and smoking, they cause cancer. One is if you go into the genetic aspect of thyroid cancer. See, thyroid usually there is a mutation, isn't it? Mutation into proto-oncogenes, and also mutation in the tumor suppressor genes. Right. So when there is a mutation, there is a change in a DNA. Now, DNA can be affected by the other way also. Like this alcohol and smoking, if you see, like in smokers, the main toxic agent are those hydrocarbons.
Yes, sir.
And in alcohol, if you see the alcoholic metabolism, acetaldehyde is a component.
Acetaldehyde, yes.
Yeah. So what they cause is they cause a epigenic modification of the DNA. Epigenic modification means they cause methylation of the DNA. The difference between mutation in this and the general mutation that usually occurs is that this is reversible, right? So if when someone stops smoking or taking alcohol, then that condition may be reversible. So that is why this is important. But alcohol and smokers also have some effect on TSH. Okay, so in that way also it can cause thyroid swelling, right? So that is why this is important. Okay, sleep, bladder, bowel, appetite, normal, married. Okay, and go to the next slide. Family history. This is very important, right? No history of similar illness in the family. So can you characterize this?
Sir, any no history, sir, no neck swelling presented in any family member or any first generation of the family.
So what do you means based on this? What do means you want to say that
Had it
it is
had it
hereditary?
been, sir, there? Yes, sir. Had it been there, then it can be, sir, hereditary medullary thyroid cancer.
Before
Oh.
cancer,
No,
Ishita,
any cancer.
before cancer, can you think of some other situation that other members may have similar disease?
Yes, yes, sir. Sir, in endemic region, sir,
Yes.
there can be,
That is the
sir,
first thing.
simple, sir, colloid goiter.
Before you
in the
think of
family.
cancer, you should think this.
Yes.
And then apart from this, there are some enzyme defects. This
Yes, yes.
hormonogenesis.
This hormonogenesis, yes, sir.
Okay, these are also some genetic linked enzyme deficiency.
Which can lead to colloid
Yeah.
goiter.
So think of some benign disease also before you think of all malignancy.
See, in thyroid cancer, means in thyroid diseases, actually, as sir said, benign diseases, there can be a familial history, or it can be hereditary, or it can be sporadic, isn't it?
Sporadic.
Do you know what is when we say it is hereditary and when we say it is sporadic?
Yes, yes, sir.
When do we say it's
So-
hereditary?
Sir, when there is
Apart from
Sir,
the genetic mutation in the germline or germline mutation, apart from that.
sir, when there is genetic means germline mutation runs in the family, then it is called familial. And sir, hereditary is who has the, sir, similar illness in the family, but sir, not directly linked.
So then that can be sporadic also. Means when there is germline mutation can occur in the germ cells also, mutation can occur in the somatic cells also, right?
Yes, sir.
So what I meant to say is we say hereditary when the condition, when the incidence is more than 5% in the age group below 16 years or 12 to 16 years, then we call it as hereditary. Right? If the incidence is less than 5% in the age group 12 to 16 years, then we say it's sporadic. Now, once there is a mutation, it can run in the family. So it's a de novo mutation. Okay. But hereditary means germline. It occurs right from the beginning. So these two are different aspects. So that is important in the family history, right? So it can occur in benign diseases also, but the situation in a benign disease is separate. In a malignant disease, it is separate. Okay. So because in a benign disease, there is gain in function. So that leads to mutation in the TSH receptors, that leads to thyroid swelling. But when we talk about malignancies, there is a mutation. So mutation may cause a gain in function or it may cause a loss of function. Right? So this is the difference. Okay. Go to the next one. So this is a summary. So it's a 34-year-old male patient who has got a swelling in front of the neck, and it has, as sir said, you say it's 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter to 3 centimeters by 3 centimeters. That means it has doubled. It is more than double, right? And the patient does not have any symptoms of hyper or hypothyroidism and compressive neck symptoms. Okay, so this is these are the important things which are you have rightly covered from the history. Now let us move on to the examination part.
Thank you, sir. So on general survey, my patient is conscious. On general survey, I have examined the patient in a full daylit room in presence of a female chaperone, and after explaining the procedure and getting her consent.
Ishita,
Yes,
you see,
sir.
you don't use all lights. When you are examining a female patient, you don't need a female chaperone. That is required for a boy examining a female patient. So you did not need to mention this line. When you are examining the patient, you need not a female chaperone.
Okay, sir.
Why she has mentioned is because, Ishita, can you tell me, can you defend this? Whatever you have said, can you defend it?
Sir,
it's not, it might not be.
Examination, sir, one helping nurse is required. So,
No. The background is we can say that, sir, this is a female patient, but generally solitary thyroid nodules are more common in males.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So you can go roundabout also. Right?
Okay.
So you can think in that line also. Okay, continue.
Sir, my patient is conscious. May I continue, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My patient is conscious, alert, and cooperative, and oriented to time, place, and person with a Karnofsky score of 90. BMI is 21. Decubitus of choice, well hydrated. No evidence of pallor, jaundice, clubbing, cyanosis, pedal edema. No engorged neck veins or generalized lymphadenopathy, and no left supraclavicular lymph node. No scratch marks over the skin. Vital signs goes as follows: pulse of 78 beats per minute in the right radial artery, regular rhythm and normal volume, blood pressure of 110/70 millimeters of mercury in the right arm supine position, respiratory rate of 15 per minute, and afebrile. On examination of the neck, on inspection, there is a single oval-shaped swelling of approximately 3 into 3 centimeter size over the right side of the anterior aspect of the in the anterior aspect of the swelling, right side. Vertical extent is 4 centimeter below the thyroid notch to 2 centimeter above the suprasternal notch, and horizontal extent is from the midline to 1 centimeter medial to the anterior border of right sternocleidomastoid. All borders are visible and look well defined.
Now, just can I stop you for a moment? You said
Yes,
vertical extent. Vertical extent of what?
The vertical extent of the swelling, sir.
Swelling. So it is
Yes,
4 centimeter below the thyroid notch and 2 centimeter above the. Okay. Continue.
Surface appears smooth and skin over the swelling appears normal. Moves vertically up and down with deglutition and does not move with protrusion of the tongue. No other visible swelling in the neck, and trachea is in the midline. I corroborated my inspectory findings with palpation. I palpated first in the sitting position with neck slightly flexed, and the patient was examined from the back and then from the front. No localized rise of temperature or tenderness. There is a single oval-shaped swelling of about the size 3 into 3 centimeter over the right side of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, whose vertical extent goes 4 centimeter below the thyroid notch to 2 centimeter above the suprasternal notch, and horizontal extends from the midline to 1 centimeter medial to the anterior border of right sternocleidomastoid. Surface is smooth, borders are well defined, consistency is firm, it is freely mobile in all directions, and skin over the swelling is normal. There is no thrill. Bilateral carotid pulse is palpable, examined one at a time, and trachea is in the midline. Lymph node examination done, no cervical lymphadenopathy. Oral cavity examination is also normal, and on auscultation, no bruit felt over the swelling. No bruit heard over the swelling, sorry. And other systemic examination are within normal limits. I summarize as follows. A 34-year-old lady presents with a swelling for last 3 months in the anterior aspect of the neck right side, which is insidious in onset, gradually progressive from 1 into 1 centimeter to 3 into 3 centimeter, presently with no symptoms suggestive of hyper or hypothyroidism or compressive symptoms. On examination, there is a single firm swelling of the size 3 into 3 centimeter in the region of the thyroid, which is firm in the region of the thyroid right lobe, which is firm in consistency, mobile in all directions with no cervical lymphadenopathy. I provisionally diagnosed my patient as a 34-year-old lady who is having a solitary thyroid nodule, presently euthyroid status, involving the right lobe of thyroid.
Okay. So
Thank
thank you.
One part is missing. You should add one more. Is it benign or malignant at the end of clinical examination? Benign etiology or malignant etiology?
Probably of benign etiology.
Yes. So these are few things you should mention. Okay. Yes, Dr. Dek.
See, for provisional diagnosis, as I said, it's okay. Means solitary thyroid nodule, actually, this is not a disease, right? Solitary thyroid nodule is a presentation. So if you say only solitary thyroid nodule, it does not mean anything. Can you tell me the causes of solitary thyroid nodule?
Sir, solitary thyroid nodule can be, sir, a thyroid cyst.
Yeah.
Can be a follicular neoplasm.
Right.
And, sir, it can be a colloid goiter. And a dominant nodule of the multinodular goiter.
Okay. Okay. So see, there are so many aspects to this, isn't it? So now, if you say solitary thyroid nodule, it does not mean anything. So you need to say, can you tell me the incidence of malignancies in whatever you have said? I mean, suppose you said follicular swelling, you said, right? So
Yes,
follicular
yes.
adenoma. So what is the incidence of malignancy in follicular adenoma? And what is the
Sir,
incidence?
sir, I think, sir, it is 30%, sir, in follicular adenoma, and sir, in solitary, in multinodular goiter, it is somewhere between 15%. I don't remember.
Solitary thyroid nodule, it is 10 to 15%, right? And for the others, it's less, means thyroid is less than 3%. So whenever you don't find, and now what are the features of, if I ask you, what are the features of malignancy in a solitary thyroid nodule? How do you understand that is malignant or not? So then you can say whether it is benign or a malignant. And so then you say it's probably of benign nature or a malignant nature. You have done
Sir,
yes?
So the features in solitary thyroid nodule, if we suspect malignancy, sir, irregular border will be there, sir. Well, the margins.
Whenever you say, whenever someone asks you, you
So
start
from the history, sir.
Yeah,
from the history,
exactly.
there is a means increase in size of the swelling over the.
Before that, in identification point, does age have certain significance?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is in the older age group, sir.
Now, malignancy cannot occur in younger age group?
Sir, it can, sir.
When does it occur in younger age group?
Sir, in case of medullary thyroid cancer, sir, it occurs. And sir, this follicular variant also occurs in 30 to 40 years.
Why do you have to think? See, I'll tell you. Sometimes when there is germline mutation, it will occur from the very beginning itself. So patients will present as a younger age group. So you don't have to memorize anything, right? And for the other malignancies, it will take time. Now, suppose a patient has got there is iodine deficiency. So there will be follicular hyperplasia, then there will be follicular adenoma, and then after that, it will turn into follicular carcinoma. So there is a pattern. But in genetic diseases, it will occur early. So age is one factor. Okay, then. So younger age group or there are certain malignancies which have got a bimodal appearance, like papillary thyroid carcinoma. It can occur in young age group also, it can occur in older
30 to 40s and again 60 to 70s.
So there may be bimodal presentation also. Okay, age. Then what else?
Sir, then sir, from the area she or she resides.
No, one you have already said, so you just taking a cue from whatever I had said. So family history.
So family history, yes, sir. Sir, history, the patient's history also, the increase in size of the swelling, and if she complains of any hoarseness of voice or any pain.
Very good.
And then sir comes to positive family history, and then positive history of radiation in the past.
Very good, very good. So these are from the history.
Yes, sir.
Right, and clinically, what do you find?
Sir, on examination, the consistency of the swelling, then the borders may not be.
Wait, just a second. You said consistency of the swelling. What is thyroid paradox?
Sir, in case of tense cystic swelling, the swelling appears very firm, which may mimic a malignant swelling.
So that is the reason why I asked you, because in a thyroid, if the swelling is solid, sometimes it feels soft, right? So feel of a thyroid nodule is very misleading. So that is the reason why nowadays we don't rely much on the palpatory findings. No, palpatory findings. We rely heavily on ultrasonography, right? And sometimes we miss also.
Little discussion on our presentation, on the examination. Go back to the examination slide of inspection. You see, in PG examination, I would expect that you give a more focused description. You see, you have given a description of a swelling in the thyroid region, and at the end also you have not informed that it is a swelling thyroid lobe. Okay, so what I prefer in the examination is you first mention there is a swelling in the right side of the neck in the thyroid region, which moves up with deglutition. And once you confirm that this is a swelling which is moving up with deglutition, and you know the thyroid anatomy, this is a swelling in the region of the right thyroid lobe, not in the isthmus or in the left.
Sir, I have mentioned it in the next slide, sir.
No, And go to the next slide.
Before palpation, sir.
Yes.
Sir, moves vertically upward and downward with declination.
No, I mentioned declination. What I'm saying is, try to understand. What I'm saying is, at the beginning,
Okay.
you
Okay,
can
sir.
start saying the swelling moves up and down declination, suggesting this to be a thyroid swelling.
Thyroid swelling.
This swelling involves the region of the right lobe of the thyroid gland, and then start the description. Rather than describing a swelling of this centimeter, moving this thyroid notch, you can straight away start describing this swelling as a swelling rising in the right lobe of the thyroid gland.
Okay, sir.
I'll tell you, see, Ishita, I'll tell you something. What sir said, there are certain swellings in the body which does not require much of a description. Apart from the site itself, you can say that it is a thyroid swelling. Like for a parotid, for a thyroid, for a breast. Okay, so in these cases, what sir said, it's better to start it itself as a description of a thyroid. Since you say that is a swelling over the thyroid fossa or in the region of the thyroid, so you start in that way. Because then what happens is you get some scope for the examiner to ask you something about the other aspects of the swelling in the thyroid rather than means going directly into the thyroid. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So you can buy some time. You can answer a few more questions.
And you have not mentioned about the intrinsic mobility of the swelling. When the swelling moves with deglutition, this swelling can still be fixed to the larynx and trachea. You got my point? The swelling which is moving up and down deglutition is not fixed to the underlying prevertebral muscle and the fascia. That is one. But a swelling which moves up and down deglutition can be fixed to the larynx and trachea.
Larynx and trachea, yes, sir.
Which is one of the feature of malignancy. So you should test also for the intrinsic mobility. That means patient is not swelling. You try to have swelling move up and down and to side to side. There should be some intrinsic mobility if it is a benign thyroid swelling, and even in malignant also it can be mobile. But in some advanced malignancy, there may be some fixity of this thyroid with intrinsic mobility. Okay.
Makunda, for mobility also, what I think means she should add is whether that swelling is moving in relation to the thyroid gland, with the thyroid gland, or it is a swelling which is discrete from the thyroid gland and it does not show signs of movement with this deglutition or something like that.
Yeah.
Why?
Once not moving deglutition means it is fixed to the underlying prevertebral muscle. So that is a more a sign of advanced malignancy.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Okay. So now, so why do you say, first of all, let us come back to tell me a few points where you say that it is a solitary thyroid nodule.
Sir, sir, there is a single firm swelling over the right lobe of thyroid, indicating it is a solitary thyroid nodule. And
rest of the gland is not palpable. Rest of the gland is not palpable.
Rest of the gland is
enlarged. So that is the only thing you are palpating and looking at.
Yes, yes, sir.
Now, when you say it's a solitary thyroid nodule, means it is a discrete nodule, it is a single nodule, rest of the gland is not palpable. So these three things are very important when you say, because in a dominant nodule might also be sometimes, what is a dominant nodule?
Sir, prominent swelling when a prominent swelling in the thyroid in presence of other small swellings which are also palpated.
Right. So it could be a dominant nodule also. So we are not sure. So a single thyroid nodule is a discrete nodule. Okay. So you find this lady, 34-year-old lady with a solitary thyroid nodule. You have told me what could be the causes. Now, how would you proceed to investigate this case?
Sir, apart from the clinical examination and history, I will like to do one thyroid function test. Firstly, the serum TSH, and then I will move to ultrasound of the neck.
No, wait. First, you would like to do a TSH, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
So what are the things you can expect in this patient? In this, I'm not asking you about the whole of the means what.
In this patient, I expect it to be a normal between 0.5 to 5.
Okay. you expect this to a normal. Can you tell me what is subclinical hyperthyroidism?
Sir, when the patient does not have any features, but biochemical parameters are suggestive of
What biochemical parameters? That is
sir, serum TSH. Sir, I mean, sir, serum TSH is low.
and then the T3, T4 will be high.
Yes, yes, sir. If serum TSH low with T3, T4 high, and patient does not have any.
Then it is a clinical hyperthyroidism. I asked you what is subclinical.
Sir, patient does not have any symptoms. Sir.
No. Symptoms does not subclinical. Suppose a patient is subclinically hypothyroid, of which you have commonly heard. We don't find any symptoms of hypothyroidism. Subclinical hypothyroidism is an entity where you find there is TSH is less, but T3, T4 is normal. And subclinical hypothyroidism is an entity where you find TSH is raised, but T3, T4 is normal. You get my point?
And one point, Ishita, the point Dr. They asked now, how will you proceed? Right breast, there is a way of saying in thyroid also. In breast, you say triple assessment. In
so here
thyroid,
it is quadruple
yes.
assessment.
So start with that. Sir, I'll go for quadruple assessment. I have already done the clinical examination. I will proceed with the thyroid function test, followed by imaging, and then the
cytology.
Cytology.
Right.
Okay, so that is a better way of answering. You can start like the sir has asked you, how will you proceed? Your answer should be, sir, I'll go for quadruple assessment thyroid disease. I have done the clinical examination and then I proceed with this.
Okay.
Fine. So ultrasound is said. Okay.
So you said that you will do a TSH. Okay. Now I'll tell you, suppose the patient has got means it's a euthyroid patient. Okay. So the patient has got a normal TSH value. Right. So now
Yes.
what will you do?
So I'll go for ultrasound of the neck. And sir,
Ultrasound of the neck. Why do you want to do an ultrasound of the neck?
sir, I want to look for the lesion if it has got any cystic component or not, and any other lymph nodes are visible or not, if any calcifications visible or not, and
you go one by one.
and other swellings in the thyroid, swelling in the thyroid region.
See, I'll tell you. You always, when you say no, you arrange it structurally. So when you do an ultrasound, what are the structures you want to see? You want to see the thyroid. You want to see the lymph nodes. You want to see the vessels. Right? So come to the thyroid first. So when you see the thyroid, it can be a single nodule, or there are certain nodules which are not palpable also.
Yes.
So what are those known as? Do you know what those are known as? What is incidentaloma? Have you heard the term incidentaloma?
Yes, sir.
Where
Sir,
did-
any nodule which we have come across during investigations but not clinically apparent.
Yeah, very good. So sometimes we cannot palpate any nodule by our hand, but we can detect those nodules by an ultrasonography. So those are thyroid incident. So it might be that whatever you are palpating is a nodule, is a dominant nodule in a multinodular goiter.
Yes, sir.
It could be that also, right? So for this, and then what else do you see in ultrasonography apart from the nodule? You see the structure of the nodule.
Yes, sir.
You see whether the nodule is hypoechoic, or hyperechoic. So that will give you an idea. Whether the nodule is cystic, okay, whether the nodule is cystic and has got some solid components, whether solid components are more, cystic components are less, or whether cystic components are more, solid components are less. So when cystic components are more, solid components are less, then we term that nodule as, what do we say?
Sir, variegated, sir.
Spongiform.
Spongiform.
Right. So spongiform nodule. Now, and also what is important, most important, as far as ultrasonography evaluation is concerned? Size.
Size, yes, sir.
Size. Why is this size important?
Sir, based on the size, sir, we will decide whether to go for FNAC or not.
Very good. Yeah.
According to the recent thyroid.
So very good. So our next investigation, what we want to do, will depend upon the critical or the ideal or the, what do I say, the bar in the size. So that will tell us whether we will do an FNAC, whether we won't do an
We'll go for
FNAC.
follow up.
What are the other things which are done? Okay. And also, what are the other things in ultrasound in the thyroid nodule you can detect? Apart from size, you have said about the nature, consistency, you see for vascularity.
So vascularity and the lymph node status,
Now,
whether it is metastatic.
I haven't come to the lymph nodes as yet.
Okay.
I said, no, you first think about thyroid, then we will come to the lymph nodes.
Okay.
So thyroid, we will see about the size, we will see about the vascularity, we will see about the architecture. We will see about whether the swelling is regular or irregular. So based on this, we divide these patients with thyroid swelling into how many categories do we divide? What is this known as? Same as breast. In breast,
Sir, thyroid classification.
very good. So that is known as thyroid classification. So what are the things in thyroids what are the components of those thyroids? Do you know that?
Sir, yes, sir. Sir, thyroids 1, it is benign, sir. Thyroid 2 is probably benign, and thyroid 3 has low suspicion of malignancy, and thyroid 4 is high suspicion of malignancy, thyroid 5 is malignant, and thyroid 3 is in. Sir.
First is benign, then is very low, then is intermediate, then is high suspicion.
High suspicion and malignant.
So there are 5 thyroids. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now you have done an ultrasound in this patient, and suppose the patient has got a thyroid 3.
Yes,
I take in between. I don't go towards the benign side. I don't go towards the malignant. It's a thyroid 3. Now tell me what you will do. And the sizes, okay, I haven't finished about the ultrasound. So that is based on the thyroid swelling. Now you have to assess the lymph nodes also. What else? Another thing I missed out. What else? What important aspect you want to see in the USG is extra thyroid extension. What do you mean by that?
Sir, any extension of the thyroid from reaching the capsule, invading the larynx, trachea, or the surrounding structure.
So that is where I wanted to ask you. Has thyroid got a definite capsule?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, sir. So pseudo capsule.
Whatever, thyroid has got a pseudo capsule. So when we mean extrathyroidal extension, what do we say? Which structure is involved?
Sir, trachea, larynx, and sir.
That is metastasis. Or okay, you can say extension, but when we talk specifically about extrathyroidal extension, we mean when the sternocleidomastoid muscle is involved or the strap muscles are involved. Okay, then we say
and the deeper prevertebral muscles.
Yeah, right. Prevertebral muscle. Because if you look at anatomy, what you have studied before, that the thyroid has got a definite capsule, it has been seen that thyroid actually does not have a definite capsule. If you go into the development of the thyroid, you will find that the thyroid, it comes from the above, and then what happens is all those thyroid follicles are there, they are aggregated in a particular area, but it may present from midline right up to the prevertebral fascia in the back and up to the muscles on the lateral side. So that is the reason why when we talk about papillary thyroid CA, we talk about lateral aberrant thyroids, right? So previously we used to say that these lateral aberrant thyroids are what? These are lymph nodes. But now it has been seen that some of them are not lymph nodes. Those are discrete swellings of the thyroid which are away from the main bulk of the thyroid. Okay. So that is one aspect. Now coming to the lymph nodes, what are the ultrasonographic findings in the lymph nodes that we see?
Sir, lymph node, there is a loss of architecture and then the loss of central hilum, loss of central fatty hilum, and the lymph nodes are wider than taller.
Taller than wider, not wider than taller.
So, yes, sir, sorry, taller than wider, and
what happens to the lymph node shape?
So circular shape.
Instead of reniform, it become round or oval.
Round or oval, and
Remember one thing.
halo around the gland.
Remember one thing. I'll just on the lighter note, I'll tell you, like longer people, they create more problem than the shorter one. So always remember that the tall is more important than wide. So loss of architecture, number one. Number two is what you have said, the cortical hilar ratio will be lost, lymph nodes will become irregular, there will be increased vascularity. Right? So that is important. And it may breach the capsule of the lymph node, extra nodal extension. So these are the features which you can find. Okay. So now you have said there are no lymph nodes. So there are no lymph nodes. I agree with you. Now you say that you have done an ultrasonography. I say it's thyroid 3. Okay. So now what will you do?
So I'll go for FNAC, sir, fine needle aspiration cytology.
Guided, non-guided.
Yes, sir, ultrasound guided, sir.
Yes.
So nowadays we prefer any ultrasound guided in order to avoid, sir, repeated examination.
Very good. So we can do, it's better to do an ultrasound guided FNAC. Okay. So ultrasound guided FNAC. So what do you expect to find in FNAC?
Sir, in FNAC, sir, it can give information on whether the nodule is a benign or inflammatory origin.
So what is that known as? What is that known as? It is a thyroid, like thyroid, there is a system of nomenclature.
Bethesda class.
Bethesda.
Right. There is another one, means same Bethesda has got a brother also. They say European thyroid classification, Taiwan. It's same, more or less the same as Bethesda. Okay. So what is Bethesda classification? Can you tell me the grades in Bethesda?
Yes, sir. Sir, Bethesda, it is benign is grade 1,
right.
And the grade 2 is probably benign. Grade 3 is atypia of undetermined significance, and grade 4 is follicular neoplasm, and grade
you said what? Grade 1 is not benign. Grade 1 is non-conclusive. Inconclusive.
Yes,
2 is benign.
inconclusive. Yes,
2
sir,
is
yes.
benign.
Like
and 3 is
atypia of undetermined significance.
Yes, and follicular neoplasm undetermined significance.
Yes, sir. And 4 is follicular adenoma or carcinoma.
No.
No, not
4 is suspicious of malignancy.
Yeah.
Sir, 5 is malignancy.
5 is malignancy.
No.
So now suppose you have done an FNAC and it comes as Bethesda 3, means atypia of unknown significance or FULS, means follicular lesion of unknown significance. Now what are you going to do?
So then
I'll tell you why I asked, because examiner is not going to ask you about Bethesda 1 or 2. They won't ask you about Bethesda 4 and 5 because they have got a very clear-cut demarcation. Right. So they are going to, that is why I asked you about thyroid 3. That is why I asked you about Bethesda 3. Now tell me what you do.
Sir, I will like to go for hemithyroidectomy with a frozen section, or sir, we can go for core needle biopsy.
Why would you go? No, why would you go immediately jump in for surgery? How do you know it requires surgery?
Sir,
Have you read newer modalities of investigation in thyroid disease? A new thing has come up. When there is a 3 or 4 suspicion of malignancy, do you know about any newer modalities of investigation?
Sir, like I have read, but sir, what are you exactly?
What have you read? Tell me what have you read?
In fact, this is studies available in SSKM hospital now. This form of modalities of investigation is available in SSKM hospital, where people are doing studies on these FNA samples to have some genetic studies.
The BRAF mutation study.
Yes, and apart from this, what else? BRAF is one. And
rate proto-oncogene, it is for,
okay.
we do it generally.
Okay, Ishita, I'll just summarize you. Means in a simple terminology, I'll tell you. See, for Bethesda 3, we can do two things. Means whatever you have said, you could have defended yourself also. Because if you say it's a single thyroid nodule, size is more than 4 centimeters, there's a family history, okay, then I could have accepted your means.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is also right answer. I'm not wrong.
Means you should know. See, unknowingly sometimes we say right things also, but then you have to know what you have said, right? Okay. Otherwise, apart from that, we can follow up these patients if they don't have these histories, which can be suggestive of thyroid cancer. We can follow up this, but then we need to do a repeat FNAC. And this time also we need to do a focused guided FNAC. Suppose we don't get anything, then if you see, like I think you had a class of genetics a few days ago. Dr. Devokshi took that class. I'll just briefly summarize. See, we have a central dogma, right? We have a DNA, and then we have a messenger RNA, and then we have a protein synthesis, right? And then what happens is, now for thyroid malignancy also genes are involved. So there are two types of genes which can, means if you study a gene can be, do you know what is, means the genes having multiple expressions, polygenic, right? So a gene can have multiple expressions. Now, if a gene has got multiple expressions, it could lead to thyroid malignancy or it could lead to something else also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, polygen, right? I'll give you an example, right? Red, you said about red. Now, red, what it does is, it can, apart from thyroid malignancy, it can cause many other genes, many other diseases. So there are certain rule out tests, there are certain rule in tests. Rule out test is means it is a specificity. Rule in test means there is increased sensitivity. You get what I say?
Yes, sir.
So what you do is, first you do a genetic profiling. That means you study the genes. So once you study the genes, you come to know that this patient could be a patient with a thyroid malignancy. Right? And then if you want to specifically label that patient to have a thyroid disease, then you need to know what those DNAs are producing. So DNAs, they will produce some proteins. So now if you study those proteins, then you can rule out. So this is known as rule out test. So one is genetic profiling, means you study the genes, and the other is genetic expression, testing for genetic expression. So genetic profiling is a rule-in test. Genetic expression testing is a rule-out test.
In fact, Dr. Dey, there is a discussion of doing a 112 gene
multi-panel
genetic expression studies, where it takes into account the genetic mutation, fusion, then copying, and genetic expression. These four are taken into account. These are very costly investigation. I agree. Genetic testing is not feasible in our country at the moment because it is not available everywhere. It is a very costly investigation. But this is coming up as a modality of investigation to decide and take a rational judgment and less of surgery, because most of this you stamp as indeterminate turn out to be benign. 60 to 70% of these are benign. So a lot of patient has unnecessary surgery. So if you have this genetic study being done, you can plan whether you go for surgery, and if you go for surgery, whether, because in thyroid malignancy, most of the time you go for total thyroidectomy. But now there is a role for doing hemithyroidectomy also. Okay, so that is one situation that you should at least touch in PG level. In MBBS, you don't expect that, say, genetic study. But in PG level, you should say that if it is indeterminate, we should like to have a genetic study in this biopsy sample. Okay, suppose this came as a colloid nodule. What should be your approach? If I say this is a colloid nodule, no evidence of follicular neoplasm, no malignancy, what should be the strategy for a colloid nodule?
Sir, then we can ask the patient that if we can counsel the patient if he wants to get operated in case of any compressive symptoms, and if in case of cosmesis. So we can.
This patient has no. You said there is in this patient no cosmetic symptoms here. She is not bothered of the cosmesis. She came with the swelling only.
3 centimeter.
Yes, sir. So, sir, in this patient, we can counsel the patient that there can be a chance of malignancy of from the swelling of in about 10 to 15% cases.
Right. Chance of malignancy in 10 okay. You counsel about the incidence. Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Accepted.
And then, sir, we accordingly we go for total
No,
thyroid.
if you counsel the
No, no.
patient with malignancy in the
Lobectomy, sir.
background,
Lobectomy.
patient will ask for surgery. If you counsel the patient saying you have 10 to 20 chance of malignancy, then everybody will say get it operated. That is not the way of counseling.
Now, I
So in
wanted
this-
to know why you will counsel about, means what are the other things apart from this incidence you will counsel, and then that is
Sir,
very
increase
difficult.
in size, sir, increase in size over a short period of time, pain and hoarseness of voice, and along with any compressive symptoms like dysphagia, dyspnea. Sir, we will counsel.
I think Ishita, approach if it's a colloid nodule of 3 centimeter size, if the patient is not bothered about the cosmetic aspect, it is always wise to continue the follow-up. Don't scare the patient saying you have 20% chance of malignancy. Okay, so if the idea is follow-up, because in follow-up, you do sequential clinical examination, you do check ultrasonography. So if this shows some change and that will suggest that is changing to malignancy, you can always take care. But basically, approach in this patient would be a wait and watch policy. If it's a colloid nodule 3 centimeter size and patient is not bothered about the cosmesis. Okay, so all colloid nodule does not require to be operated. If it is a follicular neoplasm, FN is said is a follicular neoplasm cannot be characterized. What should be the approach?
Sir, we will go for sir core needle biopsy.
No.
Or we can
No.
go for sir, or
That
we
is
can
not
go
the-
for
no, no.
upfront
But
surgery.
in
sir.
which book you find for a follicular neoplasm, you go for the next for a core needle biopsy? Core needle biopsy is not the standard of care for thyroid disease.
Thyroid disease, yeah.
That is for
Sir, we go
anaplastic
for
carcinoma.
upfront.
Core needle biopsy is for anaplastic carcinoma. But once a follicular neoplasm is at 3 centimeter size, will this patient go for wait and watch or you do some intervention?
Sir, we will do some intervention, sir.
Yes. Follicular
So we will-
neoplasm and carcinoma and adenoma cannot be differentiated in FNF specimen. So what should be your approach in this
Sir,
patient?
we will go for hemithyroidectomy and sir with frozen section. And if it comes carcinoma, then we will go for total thyroidectomy.
How reliable is frozen section biopsy in thyroid malignancy? Is it the routine standard of care? No.
So then we
If-
will go for total thyroidectomy.
No. You will go for you are right. You will go for hemithyroidectomy.
You see,
Wait for the biopsy report and then let the biopsy report come and then you can do a completion.
yes, you can do a frozen biopsy. That is described, but frozen biopsy is not having a high sensitivity in thyroid malignancy. So if you have a positive response from frozen, you can go for frozen in the same city. Otherwise, the approach can be a hemithyroidectomy, wait for the biopsy report to come back, and then consider. Then also now you have done a hemithyroidectomy, report came as follicular carcinoma. Does all patient need total thyroidectomy? Or there is some other approach?
Sir, all patients need total thyroidectomy.
Blank? You can say blank or there is, you see, as a PG, you
So
should
with
come to
thyroid
discussion.
supplement, so with thyroid supplementation.
No.
No. What
You
is
are
that?
not read about the risk stratification of thyroid cancer patient. What is risk stratification? Is there a criteria? Age is,
Yes, sir.
Macy's-
Macy's criteria
Macy's-
is there.
so why you should come to a discussion. You say always 3 centimeter nodule size is not mandating always you have to go for total thyroidectomy. There is a point for discussion.
Now, you said, Ishita, can you tell me about the risk? How do we stratify risk? Pre-operative, intraoperative, post-operative?
Sir,
It's thyroid.
so it is
You are mute. Ishita, you are mute.
Unmute. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
sir, on the basis of gender, age,
Right.
and
Whereas I say, is done it pre-op or done it post-op?
sir, intra-op, sir, intra-op.
Not intra.
No, not intra.
This is post-op risk stratification.
See, I'll tell you, Rishida, for preoperative risk stratification, we do ages or MS, right? Masses, what you say, that was previously done in post-operative state, but masses is now usually not done. There is another class, means risk stratification strategy of American Thyroid Association, which is which is more in favor for risk stratification rather than masses, right? And the better is the AJCC 8th edition. So that actually is a much sensitive way of risk stratification. So you go through these because this is, I have forgot that, means Dr. Saha pointed out that, but that is very important in case of thyroid cancer as far as your management.
We'll conclude 9:36. We'll conclude.
Okay.
2 minutes more. Okay.
2 minutes more. Okay. Now tell me, have you done a thyroidectomy, hemithyroidectomy? I'll ask you only 2 questions. Tell me what is Bayes triangle and what is Jones triangle.
Sir, Jones triangle is used to identify the external laryngeal nerve. Sir,
is it a part of the Jones triangle? External laryngeal nerve?
In order to determine the external laryngeal nerve, we consider the Jones triangle.
No, what is about the boundary?
The boundary is the cricothyroid muscle on one end, upper pole of thyroid with thyroid vessels, and in between them the external laryngeal nerve passes.
No, so cricothyroid muscle itself cannot be a boundary until and unless you pull it laterally. So it is the midline in the medial aspect, the borders of the strap muscles on the lateral aspect, and on the inferior aspect you have the superior pole of the thyroid, and the external laryngeal nerve runs through the Jones triangle. Why I asked you this question, what is the boundary of the Bayes triangle?
Sir, Bayes triangle, the boundary is, sir, the common carotid artery, the recurrent laryngeal nerve on one side, and common carotid artery and inferior thyroid artery forms the other 2 boundaries.
So in Bayes triangle, recurrent laryngeal nerve forms the boundary of the triangle, whereas in Jones triangle, external laryngeal nerve is a content.
Content. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir,
Thank you, Shita. Good presentation.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.